A short time ago, there was a hearing underway between D&D officers as well as industry experts in the field of providing equipment and the like to Department of National Defense. In that, they had a slide projection. This report comes from Defense Watch, and Dave Pugliese, I hope I pronounce his name correctly. But when the slide came to present what their thoughts were on fixed-wing search and rescue, the screen was filled with a giant question mark. It's been a question mark for the Department of National Defense for quite some time. Now, I come from an area that is one of those bases. That's 103 Search and Rescue in Gander, at 9 Wing Gander. This issue has been going on for quite some time. The Minister of National Defense said on repeated occasions about how this will be done over and over again. December 2008, the Minister announced he planned to move quickly on the search and rescue acquisition, procuring an aircraft in early 2009. It has not happened. We hear about a study being undertaken by National Research in conjunction with, it seems like we have the three departments here involved, Industry Canada, Public Works, and Department of National Defense. So I have two questions. Is the bidding process going to begin soon? Was the recommendation by National Research that they would start from scratch? And the second part of that question is, does the Air Force have in mind what type of aircraft that they are considering to replenish the fleet in fixed-wing search and rescue, particularly the Buffaloes on the West Coast, and of course on the East Coast as well with the Hercules? Thank you.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do appreciate the question of my honourable colleague from Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor. To situate my remarks, let me first say a few words about the project, and that's what this is about. In line with the Canada First Defence Strategy, the government stands by its 20-year commitment to the renewal of the Canadian Forces, and that includes fixed-wing SAR. We do plan to acquire up to 17 aircraft to meet search and rescue, operational and training requirements of the Canadian Forces in that area. In terms of the acquisition project itself, let me first say that the Department of National Defence has a priority to deliver the best equipment to our men and women in uniform while finding the premium value for Canadian taxpayers. We need an aircraft that has the capability to fulfill tasks at hand. For this reason, National Defence, Public Works, and Government Services and Industry Canada completed consultations with industry on fixed-wing SAR in July of last year. The requirements for this project have also been reviewed by an independent third party to further ensure they meet the highest standards. We're talking NRC. In the fall of 2009, the government did engage NRC to conduct an independent review of the requirements of the fixed-wing search and rescue aircraft. The NRC released its report on March 12th, and recommendations made in the report are being reviewed. And there was no specific recommendations that the member was talking about. It was a wide range of items that the NRC looked at, and they had various recommendations in each of the areas. It was a very helpful report. The Department's project office, in conjunction with Public Works and Government Services, as well as Industry Canada, is now working on a recommendation for the government which will point the way forward in acquiring new aircraft. And we expect that recommendation to be ready later this year. Once this process is completed, we will, as always, move forward in a transparent and accountable way towards a contract for an aircraft that meets our operational requirements. And it's not that we have an aircraft in mind, we have a capability in mind, because that's the important thing, Mr. Speaker. Evidently, this is a time-consuming process, not only because it calls for the highest technical standards, but also involves several departments. In the meantime, the Canadian Forces will work with industry to ensure that sufficient spare parts are available until the Buffalo fleets retire. Mr. Speaker, I've flown all over Canada in my Air Force career. From my F-18 cockpit, I've spent a lot of time looking at vast expanses in the north, the uninviting waters of the Beaufort Sea and the Atlantic Ocean. I've even spent a fair bit of time over the honourable member's beautiful province of Newfoundland and Labrador, flying out of bases like Goose Bay and Gander. For all the charm of the countryside and the beauty of the people in that province, there are some pretty desolate areas in our 10th province. Mr. Speaker, I was lucky enough never have to give an aircraft back to the Queen, but I do understand the importance of the best possible search and rescue capability. It's critical to all Canadians and others who may rely on this service, and it's critical to those brave men and women who deliver the service. That's why we have to be careful to get this right. It has taken longer than I would like, but I've learned that that's the norm around here. Nevertheless, our government is committed to moving this project ahead as soon as possible, and no one will be excluded from an evaluation except by not meeting the requirements for this no-fail mission. I'm confident the honourable member and all Canadians will be very happy with the final result. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bonavista, Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
I have to correct him on one point. He mentioned Newfoundland and Labrador being the 10th province. I'd have to call it the first province, quite frankly, but I'm a little biased. I respect his career without a doubt, but the level of transparency here is one that is alarming for many of the industry experts. Many of them do feel, which he addressed, that it's being favored in one direction. There are 2 Canadian companies that feel that, for the most part, they're effectively being frozen out of this. But here is one thing I noticed recently. Now, I'm not sure if this goes to capability or the type of aircraft, but it may be a hint in the direction they're going. The town of Gander, town council received a letter from the minister stating that Gander is not a place to house Hercules. And therefore, wouldn't that indicate that they do have an aircraft in mind by turning down Gander as a place to house fixed-wing search and rescue?
The honourable parliamentary secretary.
Mr. Speaker, that's an apples and oranges statement. The simple fact is Gander is served right now by rotary wing SAR with the Cormorant aircraft. The fixed wing SAR bases are known. Everything is open. There is no one who has been excluded or frozen out. That's just simply a false statement. As I said, Mr. Speaker, we have a capability in mind. Whatever the aircraft is, it has to deliver a capability. And that's being refined now, especially with the help of the study by National Research Council. Once that is refined, it's going to go to Public Works and Industry Canada. We're going to move forward on that. Anybody who feels that they have an aircraft or a capability that will meet the spec is more than welcome, will be more than welcome to submit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.